Welcome, everyone, to episode 2 of the Thrashcast podcast. I'm Billy, your host again tonight, along with Jim and Ken. We're the co-creators of this podcast. How you guys doing tonight?
Yeah,
Awesome.
we're all pretty good. Yeah, man.
All right, cool. So we got another interesting topic, but before we get there, I just wanted to thank everyone who tuned in to our first episode. If by chance you missed it, we were talking creator, focusing on the Pleasure to Kill album. So we had some great feedback, lots of views, kind of exceeded our expectations. So that was really cool. It meant a lot to us. Jim and Ken, anything you want to add on here?
Yeah, we're very, very happy that everyone tuned in. We had some pretty good stats for the first episode. So, like, we had over 250 views on YouTube, which is fantastic. There was like nine likes, a comment. So, yeah, we're starting off on a pretty good, on a strong note as far as I can see.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was really good. I mean, I'm getting a lot of positive feedback from people and a lot of positive comments, so it was pretty neat. And I think, what a great episode to start with. I mean, creator, and we're gonna follow it up with like a 1-2 punch here. I mean, this is awesome.
Yeah, no, great. And just in case you haven't watched the episode, just a reminder of where you can find us on the website www.horrormetalsounds.com. And then, of course, the same channel, the YouTube page, Horror Metal Sounds at Kenji.2864. So by all means, please check that out. We have an interesting topic today. Our band is Sacred Reich, and we're going to dive into a 1990 album, The Great American Way. And then we got two rankings for you today. We're going to rank the Sacred Reich full-length albums, and then jump into the top 5 Sacred Reich songs. That may have been a little bit harder.
Yeah,
But
it
yeah,
was.
so sorry, go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, that was harder for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, I always find songs harder. Oh, obviously, because it's like 10 times the number of albums, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
That's a no-brainer. So before we do the deep dive, similar to last week, we're going to cover off some news that caught our attention, or any albums that were spinning lately. So, Ken, how about you kick off this segment?
Yeah, sure. So, you probably saw this on Facebook, but the band's been promoting their new album. Evil Dead are back with their fourth studio release coming up. I think it's May 24th through, I believe it's Steam Hammer Records. The album is called Toxic Trace. And yeah, this looks pretty good. I did like their last album in 2020. And the United States of Anarchy in 2020. So this follows that. Same lineup, not too many changes in the band going forward. So we'll see where this album goes. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. The other little bit of news, I guess, kind of news and spinning at the same time. Um, Deadhead is releasing a brand new album. Actually, it's out next week. It's an EP, actually, out next week at the end of March. Um, Now, for those who don't know Deadhead, they've been around since like 1989. They're from the Netherlands, so they play more or less a death thrash style. Their vocalist Ronnie Vanderway is very much similar to Millie Petroza, so he's got a very snarly voice. The music is really, really heavy. And yeah, so that's another album I'm looking for. I have the promo for it to review, so I've been listening to it nonstop for the last week, and it's a ripper of an album. So I'm looking forward to that.
Okay. And isn't there like a crossover thrash band with this? Oh no, that's Dead Heat, I think.
Yeah, Dead Heat. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, okay. I actually have they have an EP, I guess, relatively new that I recently ordered.
Oh,
Uh
did you? Okay,
yeah,
cool.
okay. No, that makes sense. Cool. Jim, how about you?
Yeah, gotta. What I'm spinning lately is this new album that came out on March 1st from Devastator,
Nice.
Conjurers of Cruelty. And what I love about it, it's black and thrash, but for everybody to check out, you got to check out like the third track, Black Witchery on it. Sounds like kind of an old school first three albums Metallica track. It is absolutely amazing, and the album's really good. I think this album will probably end up in my top 20, which says a lot, because especially in the last couple of weeks, there's been so much metal release that, but it's that good. So everybody should check that out. And just a quick little news update. Vulture's new album, German band Vulture, via Metal Blade Records, is coming out with their album Sentinels on April the 12th. So it's really good. The first single, Unhallowed and Forgotten, is amazing. And their last album, I think in 2021, Dealing Death, if this is their fourth album, that album was amazing too. Actually, all three of their earlier releases are amazing. So definitely check them out. And hopefully, it's coming out on April 12th. So something to really look forward to. A really good German thrash band. It's wicked, old school sounding for sure.
Okay, cool. Anything else on your end?
That's it. That's all I've got.
Okay, so the German theme is going to continue because I have two German items. So the first one, an album I've been spinning, and this was an album it took me forever to get my hands on. I don't know.
Oh yeah, Risk.
Here,
Yeah.
so the band Risk. So this is 1988. The Daily Horror Show. I think I had to go to Germany to get this on vinyl eventually, but of course I was there for other reasons, not just buying the record. But yeah, really interesting background for this band because they actually were around in the 70s and 80s. They were actually like a prog band. Then they evolved to hard rock. And then like 86, 85 or 86 or 87, they switched the name to Risk and sort of went to thrash route. And so this has some speed metal. So it's definitely thrash, but some of the tracks lean towards speed metal. But just given their unique background, I think, at the end of the day, the song structures are interesting. There's a bit of technicality there. So obviously musicianship is pretty solid. Songwriting, very memorable. So, highly encourage people to give it a try. I think they probably have 4 or 5 albums. My favorite are this and the second one, but they always have this kind of colorful animal theme there. Do you guys know Risk?
Yeah,
Yes.
I know them. I have one of their albums. I think it's the album after this one, the one I own.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I have the second one as well. I think it's Animals, I believe, or it's pretty cool.
Yeah, okay, cool. And then once again on the German theme, one of my favorite bands, not well known here in North America, sadly, but it's the band Paradox. So German thrash, again, a bit of a crossover thrash, speed metal, but they sort of released these two gems, product of imagination, classic debut album. And then the brilliant Heresy.
Oh yeah, great album.
So actually the singer, songwriter, guitar player, and really only remaining member put up a Facebook post probably last week or the week before. His name's Charlie Steinhauer. So they got a new album coming out in 2024. The last album was actually Heresy Part 2. Sadly didn't get a lot of attention, but it was a brilliant record. The new album is going to be called Mysterium through AFM Records, but no release date yet. So can't wait to get my hands on that one. That should be a good album. Are you guys
Cool.
Paradox fans?
Oh, I love Paradox. Yeah, I love their album covers. They always have amazing album covers.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so sad, right? It's such a brilliant band, and just any, I mean, you guys obviously know your metal, but it's just not something you come across here, sadly, in North America.
Yeah,
no, that's very true.
And I can't believe how many, like I saw their new album, like I saw it, they were talking about it online, and so I just, like, I have one of their albums, and I Googled them, I couldn't believe there was that many past members. Like, holy
Yeah.
gee.
Yeah.
Like, it's just,
It's a
there's what,
revolving
nine
door.
albums and that
Yeah.
many past members. But yeah, this
Yeah.
is what we're missing. We're missing bands like this for sure. We really need to share the love with bands like this for sure. They're so good and they're so underappreciated, I think.
Yeah, and probably one of my, favorite bands and a band I never seen live.
Really?
Like even like a festival like Wacken,
Hmm.
they never seem to play that. Like I don't get it. But yeah, sadly, it's on my bucket list.
Yeah.
The band play some of those tracks live. Okay, cool. So let's jump to Sacred Reich. I'll give a quick a bio of the band. So Sacred Reich formed in Phoenix, Arizona, 1985. The classic lineup, as I think of them, and on the first album, Ignorance. Phil Rind on bass and vocals, Wiley Arnott, lead guitar, Jason Rainey, rhythm guitar, and Greg Hall on drums. So the band got out, and we're going to talk about a lot of these albums later, but they got 4 albums out and then sadly broke up in the year 2000. And they did come back, I think maybe 2006 or seven. I think they did a German Wacken show. But really, the return in my mind was 2017, where the band came back, the original Ignorance lineup, and basically for 30-year anniversary, played the album in full. So that was a killer show, great tour. And one thing to give the band credit, they actually did a free meet and greet at every one of these shows.
Cool.
So we got to sort of give credit when bands do that.
Cool.
That's
Um,
cool.
yeah, I know, very cool. Yeah, they signed 2 of my albums, and yeah, they're just really receptive. The only bad news is I saw the Philadelphia show, and Phil was a bit sick. So he missed
Oh.
meet and greet. So I have 2 albums signed with everybody but Phil, uh,
Oh
which is a shame.
man.
But anyways, what can you do? I got Jason at least before he passed away.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so Sacred Reich signed to Metal Blade Records in 2018, then launching the 5th studio album, Awakening. That was 2020. A few band members to changes to note. Jason Rainey and the band had split ways. I think Jason was a bit ill, and there were some issues with the band. So he left, and he was replaced by new guitarist Joey Radziwill, who's just a young guy. He kind of reinvigorates the band a little bit. There's a bit of an age gap there, and there's always been a bit of a drum switchover. Although Greg Hall came back in 17, he was off the drums for the new album, and a previous drummer for the 90s, David McLean, returned to do drums on the new album. So yeah, and then of course, sadly, Jason Rainey passed away in 2020. I believe it was a heart attack that was the cause of death there. And I think I'm pretty sure I've read that the band is pondering or working through a new album, so that should be cool.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, Ken or Jim, anything you want to add here?
So I just wanted to quickly say that with this band, it's very unique. When you mentioned sorry, Billy, when you mentioned coming back in 2017, they had no interest in recording new material. They was just strictly to play live shows. So it's kind of funny how I guess in a few years that led to Awakening, which I think is kind of funny, but because I do like that album.
Yeah.
But I thought it was an interesting note that because Phil kept on saying, no, no, we're not playing, we're not recording any new material, and then ultimately they ended up doing that. So I think that's kind of fascinating for
Yeah.
me. Anyways, that's one thing I noted.
Yeah. Yeah, that they were probably, I mean, hard to remember back for sure, but one of the first. I mean, there's so many thrash bands coming back, and the most recent one being Atrophy, returning after long breaks. I mean, Sacred Reich may have been one of the first to do it.
Now they probably
Yeah.
were. Sure, I could see that. It would make sense.
Um,
Well, I guess what happens is the bands, they probably long for that. They come back, they tour, they get a great reception, obviously, or they come
yeah,
back for a few shows, a festival, and then bam, they're right back into it again. They want to do another album. I think it's friggin' amazing. That's what we need. Like Forbidden's set to do this, and like you say with Atrophy, and I think it's great. And we've got Slayer doing a couple of shows or a show there, and who knows what could happen? Who knows? That kind of came out of left field.
yeah. We may actually get Metallica do another pure thrash album before they call it a day.
Maybe.
I'm not holding my breath.
No,
No.
me not. Not me either.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so cool. So let's move to the album Sacred Reich, The American Way. Here's the album cover here. Before we do sort of a deep dive of the tracks, just sort of a couple questions to talk through here. But how would you guys, if somebody hasn't heard of Sacred Reich, how would you describe the band to them? Maybe Jim, if you want to start.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, here's the thing. This is I would want them, they could listen to any of these. I'd want them to listen to the first three albums first. Just not giving away my list in any way because I
No.
like the newest album. But I'd want them to listen to that. And if you're looking, I would describe it as you want a hardcore thrash album with super clean vocals. This is what you want to go with. A lot of people get scared off, like I brought up Devastator there. They've got a little bit of a blackened kind of theme to them. So they have that little bit of sound that could be maybe lending a little bit from death metal, but it's definitely a blackened thrash album. This is definitely somebody who wants clean vocals and wants to really, it's an organized band. They're very organized sounding compared to like maybe some of the Teutonic Four that we had talked about, like we talked about the last album with Creator there on our last podcast, and we said it was just kind of hell bent for leather. It was just going, and it just seemed like a bicycle slide, going down a hill with no brakes on, and which was awesome. But this is a little bit more constructed, a little bit more, I guess, safer thrash, but it's got great vocals, and it's just kick-ass albums. This band should be way bigger than what they are in my mind, but that's how I would explain it to somebody, especially somebody getting into thrash. This probably Forbidden, Twisted into Form would be another one you'd want to go into. I mean, nothing against the old, the original four, but maybe some of the production on the older albums might scare some newer fans off, while the production on these albums may be a little off on Ignorance. It was more of a harder core thrash album, but like you head into this album here, and it's the production on it's great. I mean, it stands up so good today. And if any fans or new fans that are out there are maybe worried about sort of that muddy sound, which I like from the first couple of Slayer albums or Kill 'Em All or something like that, this would be definitely a safer bet for them.
Yeah, no, all good points. Yeah, I think from my perspective, I think you kind of hit on it, maybe a few things. Definitely a band willing to take some changes.
Yeah.
The sound definitely evolved through time, and maybe not to all fans' taste, but the band did what they felt was right at the time. I'm sure Ken will talk to this, but definitely had some certainly as the band progressed, some more intelligent lyrics. And then just a last thing I would call out is just the songwriting, right? I mean, Sacred
Yeah.
Reich has the ability to do these like crazy catchy choruses with hooks all over the place. Like, and as you said, the smooth singing, it's, very, easy to the ears, and something that's easy for new fans to get into. But Ken, I think we've sort of said a lot there. Anything we missed, or based on your view?
No, you guys pretty much hit it on the nail. What if somebody came up to me and asked me about the band? The first thing I would say is, if you want to hear a thrash band with socially conscious lyrics, this is the band to
Mhm.
hear. In my mind, anyways, because
Yeah.
the first album is really strong for what it is. I know there's a lot of like thrashers who love that album to death. I personally think it's a good album, but the Step Up album is the second album,
Yeah.
The American Way. I think lyrically, even Jim just mentioned that, yeah, they have a very crisp, clear direction. The songs are intelligently written. There's one song that we'll talk about that's kind of cheesy, but every song on that album is solid, jam packed. So if anyone
Yeah.
asks me about Sacred Reich, I would say right off the bat, you're going to get a really good thrash band. That may stand out a bit more to some of the other bands of that era, in my mind, because they didn't really write about death and destruction and horror. They had a whole different approach to their style of writing.
Yeah.
You're right. And you know what? What I love about, there was a quote that I read from Phil, and he said that they didn't want to come out with just Ignorance 2.
Yeah.
That's why they kind of brought out like a little bit. They tweaked it again, but I mean, there is one album where they do change off quite a bit, but they
Yeah.
tweaked it again, and I think that's cool. That shows that it's a maturing band. That they were obviously probably getting a heck of a lot more comfortable, and it's easy to just kind of regurgitate and put out and put out and put out, and I don't feel this band has ever done that. So
Yeah.
True.
No, good point. One thing I always found interesting, and certainly the show, we're not getting into political views or anything like that by any means. I always just found it interesting. Like, I follow Phil on all the social media, and he has very strong political feelings. And like I get a kick out of reading the comments, because he's basically like, pissing off half the fan base with his comments. So I don't know. I always found that, I think the band should express what they want to express, but maybe it's just from my perspective, I just think
yeah,
it's safer to say nothing, and then, keep, no,
Yeah.
yeah,
not say nothing, like express what you want in
Yeah.
your
But
songs, but not
yeah.
sort of passionately comment on, politics so often. But I don't
Hmm.
know, maybe that's just me. Like, I'm thinking just a
no,
max
I agree.
fan base.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, so yeah, I guess in my eyes, I tend to view, certainly Sacred Reich are not that first wave of thrash bands, the sort of the big four. Just wondering, sort of, and Jim, you may have touched on it a bit in your comments, but what place does Sacred Reich hold for you in terms of thrash metal history?
I think for me, it is definitely a second wave, but I would put them like, it's hard because I'd put them like maybe with Testament, maybe with Death Angel,
Hmm.
uh, maybe with Overkill. Although some of these bands, I would like to move into the top four. To be honest with you,
Oh, me
like
too.
I got to be honest with you. Exodus. I wouldn't put Exodus in that group. I'd want Exodus to be in the top four, because, or maybe even a top six. But they would definitely round out like probably an 8 for me. And it may be because they haven't had a lot of material compared to a lot of these other bands. But I think that, as you guys were saying, lyrically, vocally, and musically, they definitely, for me, are top, in that mid part of the second wave. I mean, you've got, you could have Violence, you could have Dark Angel, but I think that they're more, I push them up with a little bit more of the Testament, Exodus, Death Angel, Overkill. heading into that is what I would do. Maybe just a little bit on the out of that for me, but definitely. But some of those bands, like I say, I'd like to pop off maybe one. Like nowadays, I wouldn't want it. Like as much as I have massive respect for Metallica, and they're my favorite band from that time frame. But just with what they've been putting out lately, I think that Testament would be good in there, or the last Overkill album was absolutely friggin' awesome. So, and Death Angel, another one that just, I mean, I could rave about all these bands. So, but definitely in that second wave, fitting to be with those big names, I feel.
Okay, cool. No, that sounds good. How about you, Ken?
Yeah, I had the similar thoughts too, but I mean, I would put them in the second wave as well. I kind of compare them to Atrophy in some ways. I compare them to Defiance. All the bands that Jim mentioned make sense. I think among that pure group of lesser known bands. The only thing for me that I have a bit of an asterisk towards the band because their output is so small. They didn't really have a
Yeah.
lot of albums, so it would have been nice if they actually were able to maybe shuffle in two more albums in that bunch. I mean, I know they had the EP Surf Nicaragua, but I would have liked to have seen them with a bunch more albums to sort of beef up their profile as a band.
Yeah.
So that's about the only thing I would add to this. Like I kind of think that they're great, but they just maybe didn't have as many albums as they probably should have before they called it quits the first time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I lean more towards you, Ken.
Mhm.
I definitely sort of see them as the second wave, but sort of see maybe second wave part two. Uh, the
Mhm.
part ones being the violence and the testament and the Exodus and a lot of those bands. But yeah, I think the output sort of hurt them, and I love Sacred Reich and I think they're unique, especially vocally, but like I'm not sure they sort of changed the game or anything, or groundbreaking. They definitely evolved in the '90s, but yeah, I don't know. I guess for me, I sort of placed them sort of towards the later group of bands in that second wave, but
Yeah.
still, great material, no doubt.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, but one thing I will say, although that's sort of my feel in terms of discography,
Mhm.
Sacred Reich is a band I've seen like so many times. Like
Yeah.
I actually think they're fantastic live. And having Joey in the band's been a big difference. Like you see Phil performing, and he's got a smile on his face. The band's enjoying interacting with the audience. So from a live perspective, I ranked them higher. And a lot of the material, like even the American Way, I mean, it's not a tame album, not
Yeah.
as trashy as Ignorance, but like I do find all the material on the American Way comes off. I enjoy much more live because it tends to be heavier and a little bit faster and
Mhm.
so yeah, just an interesting observation. But yeah, I think their live show still holds incredibly strong.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, then in terms we like to tackle the album cover, uh, and so our sort of art expert Ken, you want to tackle this one? I mean, obviously
Yeah.
we got the Statue of Liberty, but I'm not sure what's going on up here.
Yeah, it looks, I don't know, it looks like it's in a fog, or like it looks like the aftermath of World War III, or at least the crumbling of society, because I know there's a lot of the lyrics on this album very much foreshadow the idea of society, or American society in decline. The artist is Paul Stotler. Now, Paul has a very interesting background because he actually is a musician. He actually formed he's also like from the Phoenix, Arizona area. So he had a band called Dismember, which was a thrash band. They didn't get past the initial demo stage, so they actually put out a demo in 1989, and I don't think it went anywhere. So he ended up doing a lot of artwork instead because I think he had a background in illustration. So I know he did the Surf Nicaragua cover. He did this cover here, and then he also did Soulfly's Savage Savage's cover from 2013. So yeah, he's been around. He's still in the business. I think I also read something that he's also a sound engineer too. He's worked on as a sound engineer as well. So yeah, so he really maintains that profile in the music industry to this day. But his covers are great. I like that cover. Although the first two covers are really good, but if you compare it to Savage's, it's a different kind of painted style, so
Yeah.
it's pretty good. It's just a different style from way back then to now. But
Hey Ken,
yeah,
did he do Sepultura Rise? I thought he
no, that's
no.
Michael Whelan,
Oh,
Michael
okay,
Whalen.
okay. I thought
Yeah,
he
yeah,
might have
Mike.
done.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, no. Michael Whalen did that cover.
cool.
But Paul hasn't did a lot of covers though, but he's did a few. So yeah, I did a little bit of digging on him because I knew the name and I wasn't really 100% certain about him. But then I was like, oh, if he was in a band, that's cool. Um, they had a demo cassette as far as, so they never got any further than that with the demo from '89.
Cool. All right, so let's tackle the album, the individual tracks. So song number one, Love and Hate. Jim, how about you kick us off here?
Oh yeah, this starts off the album really cool. Those amazing opening riffs. You know, it's got that trademark 1990s thrash sound. Again, with the first thing that jumps out, if like I got this album first before I got Ignorance. So and then I went back and got Ignorance. But I mean, the first thing that I realized right off the bat was the fact of the really clean and really clear vocals, and I really like that. I love, though, I like unclean vocals as well. I mean, I'm a huge death metal fan. But I mean, for this, I really, really liked it. You know, the drums stand out. There's a cool bass line in it. Again, too, you know, it's got kind of a little bit of a doom sound to it. I mean, some of this album does have that. And Billy, you had brought that up where live they do it a lot faster and maybe a little bit more heavier. So I kind of got sort of a bit of a off this song and some of the other songs, a bit of a doom sound to it. And that could be the fact that this is a heavier song, but it's not super, super fast. So, and you know, unlike like the Creator album we talked about last week, where it was just fast, you know, fast and heavy. And
Yeah.
this was definitely a little bit more kind of an organized. I keep calling it an organized sound. So, but no, I love the song. It's a great song.
Yeah, no, cool. Ken?
Yeah, I like this song too. It has a lot of groove. The one thing I noted,
Yeah,
I hear the bluesy Sabbath, but more of like a groovy Sabbath. What I noted in the song. I like the song a lot. The lyrics are where I always like, and I like the fact that he has the one line, "I hate to love, I love to hate." It's such a great line. It's so perfect for the album. And as you know, the all the lyrics in this song are about personal conflicts and relationships, which is a bit different from what we heard last week talking about Millie and Creator. But I like this song. Phil wrote this song with Wiley, so they're really good together as a duo. I think writing songs. It's catchy at times. It has its moments, but I think it's an opening. It's a good opening for a song.
yeah,
Yeah. No, I think that makes sense. Yeah, I think it has, trying not to tackle what you guys have already said, but like one of the things, first song on the album, certainly you get the impression they've matured versus Ignorance. Like I really love Phil's vocals here. His delivery's like, we talked about it already, unique in thrash, but he just sort of has a good tone and his singing far more clean than the previous album, and his bass playing is quite good too. There's a lot of cool bass lines, and
yeah,
throughout the whole album, actually, there's a lot of good like bass solos going on. So I think that's pretty cool. It wasn't so defined, the bass in the first album. Interesting guitar leads. Similar to Phil's vocals. It's not necessarily about playing the fastest or shredding as fast as you can. Like Wiley's playing is just interesting. It fits the context of the song, so it works. works. And I agree. Like this song and a lot of it, some of the others in particular, are definitely groovy, and you kind of get that early feel for what was to come in the next two albums.
Yeah.
Very true.
Yeah. So then that brings us to the title track, "The American Way."
Yeah,
Ken, you want to kick us off here?
yes, sir. This is my favorite song on this album.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is like, for me, like, it's a toe tapper right from the start.
Yeah.
There is some groove in this, but there's a really nice pacing to the song itself. And I think this is their most intelligently written song because it's about societal decline. He talks about the erosion of truth and honor in the American way and how it's been replaced by lies and deceit, which I love. I love that. The line I like is "No truth, no justice, the American way." It's such a
American Way.
great line. It's really hard hitting, but he makes it's very poignant, and I love the fact that this band is decided to write this kind of a song. I personally love the song. I there's nothing about the song that I don't enjoy. For me, so yeah, what more can you say about it? It's fantastic.
Yeah, no, I have to agree with you. Very strong songwriting here. Really like the pacing and tempo changes. I will say, I do think, in a weird way, it kind of suffers a bit of being overplayed. Like whenever I hear like a Sacred Reich track, it tends to be this one. It's always, it's often played before other shows, and the band plays it all the time. So I guess it suffers from my perspective, being overplayed somewhat, but yeah, I mean, just that killer main guitar riff that keeps coming up, so memorable, and this chorus, the words that you kind of mentioned, Ken, it's just great live, right? Everyone shouting back the American Way at the end of the chorus. It just works really well, and I think just in general, the Sacred Reich songwriting style just really suits itself to playing live. But yeah, great track. Jim, how about your thoughts?
Oh, I mean, it's one of my like two top favorite songs on this album. I mean, it was in the 1992 film Encino Man. So like,
Yeah.
Brendan Fraser, Pauly Shore, that was a crappy movie, but they played the video in that movie. So that's probably their sort of claim to fame, kind of, with that, a little bit of getting some publicity there. But no, I mean, this song, as far as I think, could have been on Injustice for All. Except for it has better, louder, tuned up bass. So you can hear the bass better. But it has that kind of has that, at that point of time in Metallica's career for that album. This sounds like it could come right off of that album. Just like I say, a better thumping bass. But yeah, that slower intro cracks into that chugging riff, that memorable riff. And the harmonies in it as well, too. It's really, you can tell the band's been maturing, but Lady Liberty rots away, no truth, no justice, the American way. I mean, the whole thing is just, fist in the air, and you're just thrashing out to it. No, it's a keeper for sure.
Yeah, I think the band would agree. Okay, so that brings us to track number 3, "The Way It Is." Jim, how about you kick us off?
Yeah, this has got another wicked guitar riff intro, and this is, the drums really sound like show off on this track quite a bit. The directional changes with the heavy guitar is really, really cool. And it's a super catchy song. I think it's pretty catchy. I like it. It's got a good spot on the album. One of my other favorites are coming up very shortly, and but it's a great song. I absolutely love it. I mean, this whole album really doesn't have a bad song on it. Maybe something that's a little out in left field, but it's got, this is a wicked track.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great one too, and I love that you called out the drumming.
Yeah.
I think Greg Hall's a great drummer. Certainly underrated. But yeah, there's some interesting fills here. A really cool double bass drumming in the opening. So yeah, he really stands out to me. Um, and once again, another like catchy chorus, right? That's like a common theme all over the place. And again, lots of great riffs on the track again. Wiley's guitar solos are good. Just think it's a really great track. And then I really like it towards the end, like kind of like in that last sort of half a minute to a minute, the song just takes off and
Yeah.
completely spreads. And that actually happens a fair amount on a few of these. They'll sort of go into mid-pace mode, and they at the end of the songs they really just take off and leave like a good lasting impression. But Ken, how about you?
Yeah, you guys pretty much both pretty much nailed it with the song. I think the chorus is what I like about it. This is the way it is. It's really good because the song has that crunchy beginning, which is great with the guitars. And it's another heavy song because they're trying to, I guess the discourse here is that they're discussing the idea of idealism against reality. What is it? How do we how do we handle it, or how do we look at it? So I like it. I like the fact that here's a thrash band that decides to do something totally different from what you get normally on the American scene, because a lot of the American bands all have the very similar style. We talk about death, madness, destruction. Here it's none of that, and this is why I like this album in particular, because it's such a great song for me.
Yep. No, makes sense. Okay, so let's move to track number 4, Crimes Against Humanity, one of the longer songs on the album. Ken, why don't you kick us off?
Yeah, this is another great lyrically written song because obviously it's their environmental song. Of course, we all know that. What I like about this, you guys just mentioned Greg Hall's drumming. The
Yeah.
drumming at the beginning is so great,
Yeah.
and then you get Phil in there with the bass, and it's just whoa. And then they kind of set the song up that way, and it just roars from there. And yeah, and it's like the second longest song on the album because it's about 6 minutes and 17 seconds long, but it's so powerful because they're talking about the idea of pollution and how humanity will have to deal with it, and what are the consequences of polluting polluting America with all kinds of crap. And so I like it for that reason. But yeah, it's a really really strong song. I have a hard time with this song because it would be my maybe second or third favorite song on the album, but it's one that I love to play a lot because I just love the sound of it. And Phil is amazing on bass, and his vocals are awesome as well.
Yeah, yeah. This one's speaking of groovy, this one has like a cool groovy style as well.
Yeah, exactly. It
And
has
it's heavy, right? It's heavy as hell at
very
times.
heavy. Yeah,
Yeah,
very very heavy.
yeah. Jim, what are your thoughts?
My favorite song on the album's this.
Oh, nice. Cool.
I would tie it with the American. It's just so tribal, that drum and that bass. Just, I mean, at a time when maybe bass wasn't being as pushed as much as or being as tuned up as much through thrash. They really kind of took it to a different level. I mean,
Yeah.
that bass line is amazing. It's very heavy, sludgy song, and I love that. Where he wails crimes, it just they bring it home, and it's my favorite track. Wicked track. I love it.
Yeah, no, and that's some really good lead work from Wiley as well. Um, but yeah, for me, like the kind of the middle is kind of my favorite part of this album. So this song and probably State of Emergency
Yeah.
and Who's to Blame. I'm jumping ahead, but those 3 songs are kind of my favorite off of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I don't think I need to add anything else. You guys hit it there. So yeah, State of Emergency. Jim, why don't you start here?
This is a really cool sounding song. Again, it's got that slower bass line, but I mean, again, the drums stand out on this. It's another great drum track. And, the guitar solo in this is probably one of the best guitar solos on the album. I think it's just really really cool. It kind of changes direction like halfway through and then speeds up. And I kind of find it, I love the fade out at the end too. I love it when songs do that. But it's kind of has a bit of an Anthraxy kind of vibe to it for
Yeah,
me.
you
I'm
just stole
always
my
trying
thunder.
always trying to work it out in my head where, they don't sound like Anthrax, but it has
Yeah.
that sort of directional vibe, especially off a lot of their earlier stuff. So what do you think, Ken? Because you're a huge Anthrax fan.
Yeah, that's the first thing I noted in my notes. Anthrax.
Yeah.
It's the guitars, like it's a heavy vibe.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can hear it. I hear it in the guitars, and I agree what you just said. The second half of the song, it picks up, and it's like,
Yeah.
holy smokes, it sounds like an Anthrax song.
Yeah.
But just to add to your point, the reason why we're both comparing it to Anthrax is I think lyrically, this is like, it's about their stance against apartheid in South Africa. So
Right.
it's a really strong song. And it's funny because, Jim, when we did Persistence, we talked about that because they have a couple of songs in there where they're more political leanings. And this song could easily be on Persistence, I think.
Good
And you
point.
mentioned the earlier albums, but I think Persistence is where I would slot this song on that if it was an Anthrax song, because it's got that vibe to it, and it's a great song. This would be my I feel like you were saying 1A, 1B. Like would be my 1A because I love the guitar tone in this.
Anthrax could have ditched "Got the Time" the cover and put this on.
Exactly.
I'll agree with that. That's for sure. Yeah, no, I think I said it. This is kind of my favorite track, and Phil shines on this, right? The bass work is fantastic, his vocals, and I think you guys hit it right. For me, it's the first half's a bit more mid-paced, but once again, it sort of enters like thrash attack mode in the second half of the song, and I think that's just something I think I said it already, but that's worked well across the whole album, right? Just as songwriters, I love Ignorance, and I'm not giving away my ranking either, but like Ignorance is pretty much all the tracks are kind of very fiery and at one level, other than that guitar solo on the instrumental track on there.
That's right.
But this has a lot more variety. There's just a lot more going on within the songs. And I guess that makes sense, right? They're maturing as songwriters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. And Jim, I got you on this one, right? I'm trying to remember now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay, you went first. Yeah. Okay. Every episode, at least one track, I forget if I've gone to everybody.
Don't worry.
Okay, number 6, who's to blame? Who wants to start here? Ken, how about you go?
Sure. Yeah, this song I like a lot too, and I know you just mentioned it, Billy, but yeah, this is like harking back to Satanic Panic of the '80s. I love this song. It's cleverly written, and I like the fact that they have this mysterious kid Johnny who they're referring to, and his parents are telling him like, you shouldn't be listening to this music. And you mentioned Ozzy and Judas Priest, and it's like, so obviously it refers back to Satanic Panic, which is which is well documented on the internet. You can just look it up, and you'll be able to read dozens and dozens of stories and what happened during that time. Yeah, but this song is really good. I like it. There's a bit of an up tempo at times. I just like and I think you mentioned it earlier, Billy, about or no, actually I think you mentioned it, Jim. The kind of the doomy Sabbath. It sort of starts to creep its way back into the song part way through, which I kind of like, and so it gives it a very kind of the beginning was very ominous, so that obviously pretty much makes the whole song sound like that going on. But yeah, this is a really good song.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. The first thing I wrote here is, it's ominous feeling to the song. So we're on the same page there. It feels a little preachy, but I mean that's the message. And I love the way it sort of, it gets like, this skull crushing heaviness, and that might be the Black Sabbath influence. But then again, they'll slow it down, and just overall a powerful song. And those evil backward messages impacting all us young youth. I mean, I guess the three of us turned out okay, right? Played all that
Yep.
stuff. So, but yeah, I like the track a lot. Jim, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's kind of the same thing. I mean, it's got that really heavy sound, but I love, Johnny, can you hear me? Turn that music down, and it's just a big anti heavy metal. Heavy metal's bad. Heavy metal's satanic. It kind of Mike Muir could sing this for Suicidal, and it would be something like institutionalized or whatever, and it would be
Yeah.
like his twist on it. It's nice, and I kind of like it being preachy because it's kind of like a fu, and I like that. And it's who's to blame. And like you say, everybody, the three of us, turned out okay. So I mean, hey, and here we are. We're in our 50s, all listening to the heavy metal music. So we haven't, gotten
Snapped yet.
No.
Wicked song though, and I agree, Billy. The meat of the album, it's the middle of this album is just it's fantastic.
Yeah. Ken, your thoughts?
Yeah, again, what can you say? Like, it's another strong, wicked song. Yeah, I mean, you guys just pretty much said it all. But yeah, the meat of the album is right here, and with
Yeah.
these songs, you're getting it all the way through. So yeah, I like this song as well. It's another toe tapper.
Yeah, no, I agree. So that brings us to I don't know, track number 7, second to last. Maybe I'll start for a change. I don't like in my eyes, like I enjoy this song. Like it's probably one of the more straightforward songs. Probably more in the older aggressive thrashy style, but still like super catchy. Great riffs. There's an excellent bass solo in here. Like I just feel, and I like 31 Flavors, which is the next track. But I definitely would have reversed them.
Oh, okay.
Like I think to me to end with the banger track kind of makes a little bit more sense. But I don't know, maybe that's just my view. But
No.
what do you guys think, Jim?
I I agree. It's a wicked. It would have been good. Like I like 31 Flavors too. I mean, I know I'm jumping ahead here, but I agree. I would have probably put Crimes Against Humanity as my last song just to
Oh,
finish it
nice.
off as a total banger, and then have this ahead, and maybe kind of not really bury, but kind of maybe even use it as a bonus track or something. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but it's just for 31 Flavors. But yeah, this or maybe track 4, I would have liked to end it because it would have just finished you off in thrash style. But we'll get to the next track soon enough.
Yeah, no, that makes yeah, I agree. How about you, Ken?
Well, I agree with you, Billy. I think this song should
Yeah,
have been the last song on the album because
Yeah.
it's up tempo. It's really fast. It probably is the fastest thrash song on the album for the band,
yeah,
I would think. And I like it too because again, the lyrics is where I really like listening to because talking about the idea of artistic expression and that you shouldn't let other people define or have their expectations define your expression of freedom as an artist. So it's a little bit on the lofty side, but I admire that because they want to stick to their guns, and this song pretty much has it all. So it's like a toe tapper right from beginning to end, and it probably should have ended the album, I would think.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so we alluded to it already.
Yeah.
The infamous
Yep.
31 Flavors. Ken, why don't you take the lead here?
Oh yeah, I've read a lot of vitriol online about this song. So many people hate it and they hate it and they hate it, but I like the song. I think to me it's I guess maybe what they're trying to say is that they just want to get out of their skin. And the opening is what I like about it because they're doing this little groovy bit, and then Wiley's like stop, 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 and then Phil's like no, don't worry, Wiley, just play it, and then they get into the song. I mean, it's cheesy. I mean, there's a lot of really cheesy lyrics in it, like come lick it off and be my Dairy Queen. It's like okay, yeah, this is like getting into Warrant or like Poison territory, those kind of lyrics. But the song is fun. I don't mind the song. It's I don't know if it's the best way to end off an album. I would agree
Yeah.
with you guys. I think they started out good, and then you have this where it kind of fizzles out. So I do understand why there's a lot of vitriol online for this song. Why a lot of, like, I guess thrash purists really hate it for that reason. But I don't mind the song overall.
Yeah, no, like from my perspective, I'm kind of the same way. We already talked, shouldn't have been the last track. But I like it. It's funky as hell. The bass
Mhm.
is way up in the mix. And then, what metal's not complete without the addition of the horns, right? It's
Exactly.
like three, you got a horn section in there as well. But I don't know, like I agree with the underlying messaging, right? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, we're all diehard metal fans, but I mean, I dabble in jazz, classic
Yep.
rock. I actually own every Johnny Cash album.
Oh,
Uh,
that's cool.
so I
Cool.
appreciate all kinds of styles of music, and every now and then I'll take a break in metal and listen to something else, and I come back and just love the metal even more. So, like, I love the underlying message, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, and I think it's an interesting track. The only thing I don't like is, I don't know, kind of the interactions, where they're talking is a little bit silly in my eyes.
Hmm.
I
Okay.
don't know.
Yeah.
I could have did
You
with
mean
it.
the beginning of the song? Like you're
Yeah.
talking about the beginning? Yeah. Okay. I don't mind that. I thought that's kind of. I was chuckling at that beginning. I always thought it was
Okay.
funny.
I don't know. Jim, how about you?
Yeah, like I'm a Red Hot Chili Peppers fan, especially from Blood Sugar backwards till
Mhm.
they sort of went a bit poppy. And it's definitely in there. This could have been off of Mother's Milk, I guess. It says that in the song, which is kind of a bit of a throwback. But I mean, definitely funky song. It reminded me. I remember probably when I was younger, I didn't appreciate it much. It was probably a skip track, just metal and that. So but I can appreciate it now, and I think it's pretty cool, and it shows off their musicianship. I think it's pretty neat. And again, I would have probably put it on as a bonus track, maybe added another song, and then put this one on just as an extra for one of the at that time you were CDs, cassettes, or albums, so records. So that's what I think they probably should have done, or maybe even on something that they would have released later, maybe added it there. But it's cool. It kind of lets the album. It finishes the album off. It's like a deflating balloon, kind of, rather than a pop.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I guess that one thing I found is this is a short album, right? It's like
Yes,
35 minutes. So I
Yeah.
guess they leave that off and they're hitting half-hour mark almost. Um,
that's
I don't
true.
know. Yeah, I would have liked, we talked about before, it'd be good, obviously we would have preferred a few more albums in the catalog, but on this track, on this album, in this kind of style, I would have liked to have seen one or two more songs. They could have added 10
Yeah.
minutes and got to the 45-minute mark easily.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think too, like, instead of maybe this, they could have used their War Pigs cover, even if they wanted to do a cover, off of War Pig, off of Surf Nicaragua,
Yeah.
Yeah.
because that would have been pretty cool too. I mean, just as, but yeah, they're I think they're 2 tracks short on this for sure. Like, having it to get it up to that 45-minute mark, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I mean, they're a bit hit or miss on covers.
Yeah.
They have some good covers, but I'm not going to get into Heel and the Oingo Boingo cover that's on that thing. But
Yeah.
uh, anyways, that
Mhm.
one's in a favorite of mine at all. Um, all right, cool. I don't know. Do you guys want to give a ranking to the album?
Yeah, we
Sure.
can. I mean, for me, I would. It's a solid 9. I think 31 Flavors might knock it down from the 10 that we normally like to give for these thrash albums, but I would give it a 9 for me. Would be my
Yeah.
score.
Yeah, I was curious because I'm like a 8 or an 8.5.
Okay. Yeah, you're
Um,
close to mine.
So, where are you sitting, Jim?
Yeah, I'm at 8.59. I think it needs to be a little longer. I think the 7 songs are phenomenal, and I think I don't like hate 31 Flavors to the point where it's like, I get it. they were having some fun maybe, or just trying something different. That's cool, but again, I think it's still two tracks short of what it should have been. And I mean, they would have released 2 years earlier Surf Nicaragua, and why didn't they just split it, or either put out I don't know, they could have taken a few of the tracks off that, even if they wanted to, and maybe include it just to make it, or at least turn that into maybe a full album or whatnot. But yeah, I'd say about 8.59, same as you guys.
Okay. Yeah, and the only reason why I mentioned that is, we have a history of, I don't know, like some people might think we're biased, always, calling every album a 10.
10.
I knew for me it wasn't, so I was curious to see
Yeah.
what you guys were thinking.
Yeah.
I can't give it a 10. I'd like to, but no.
Okay. No, fair enough. And we all agree. So that makes sense. Okay, so let's go to the ranking the albums. So 5 albums, no EPs. Who wants to go first? You want to start us off, Jim?
Yeah, sure. I'm gonna start at 5.
Yep.
I don't think it's any Heel would be my 5th. Like it's not bad. It's very Pantera-ish to me, and it's just, I don't know. It's kind of a step out, but it's not a bad album. It's just not, doesn't follow the line of the other albums for me. But it's a great album, and I think if it was maybe put out by a different band altogether, a new band, I'd probably be a little bit more into it, and I'd be like, oh yeah, this is cool by this band Heel rather than Sacred Reich. But needless to say, it's my number 5. Number 4, I'd go with the third album, Independence. And that's kind of maybe a bit of a shocker, because a lot of people really, I mean, it's a great album. Number 3, I go with Awakening, and I love that album. That album is wicked, and I'm so excited that they brought it out. I mean, oh geez, that was awesome, and it was great to have that happen, and I can't wait for a new album. Number 2 would go with Ignorance, their first album, and number 1, I mean, I got to go with this, The American Way.
Cool.
Okay. How about you, Ken?
Okay, so Heel number 5, I think that's pretty much. I mean, I was listening to it over the weekend, and there's not one song on it that I really like. When you listen to an album over and over, and then you go, oh, that song, and it just goes into your head. None of those songs stick to me. Like, it's not a bad album at all, but none of it just sticks. So it's number 5. Number 4, I'm putting Independent. Again, I like the album too. The song Independent is my favorite song on that album. But once you get past that song, the other songs are just, they're so. But again, not a lot of it sticks with me. It's just, I don't mind it. It's not badly written. It just doesn't really stick. But I agree with Jim, number 3, Awakening. That's a really, really good return to form album in my mind. And it does very much resemble American Way in a lot of ways. Just very, very kind of short songs, really, really sharp riffs. Like it's just, and maybe with the addition of the new guitar player, it probably has a lot to do with it, but they sound energized, and it does very much seems like it could follow the American Way in my mind. Number 2, I'm putting Ignorance. Now, that might be blasphemy to some, but for me, Ignorance is a good album, but it's kind of boring and sometimes. And I was listening over the weekend, and it's like it just stays all the way through, and I don't mind it. And the song Ignorance is pretty good, but yeah, and it doesn't really hold water. And for me, of course, The American Way is my favorite album of the bunch. And I think for me, it comes down to one thing: it's the songwriting. I like the lyrics of the album, so it's my number 1 choice.
Wicked.
Okay. So my turn. We definitely have a very different mix on this one.
Okay,
with the exception of number 5.
Okay.
So 1996's Heel is the number 5. Yeah, I mean, I think you guys, I just think it's inconsistent. The song definitely hands down the weakest songwriting in the catalog. I mean, lots of I think Ken, you mentioned it, Pantera groove. I mean, this and Independent are more groovy albums, but unlike Independent, these songs are just kind find that boring. I think they hold up much better on independent. And there is one song like I don't mind on here. I was
Okay.
re-listening to it last night. "Seen Through My Eyes" is kind of
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I didn't mind that one, but otherwise I'd agree, right? There's in my eyes, there's one really good track. There's like maybe three decent ones, and then I can do without the other half.
Yeah.
So for me, number four, 2019's Awakening.
Mhm.
So the latest album, and I think part of this may just be how long I've lived with the album, because I do think it's a great album. Somebody already said it, like featuring Joey on guitar. He sort of brings some youth and fire into the band. I kind of hear all aspects of the band in this album.
Yeah.
You get a bit of everything, right? So, I think it really worked well, and it's an album they kind of, I think they very much needed to mix it up after Independent and Heal, and this has sort of some thrashy bangers as well. So, that's what was needed. Here will be my controversial one.
Mhm.
Number three is The American Way.
Ooh.
Right, so we kind of said 8.5 rating. And so for me, I think it's a great album, right? We just raved about it. I raved about it. It's just, to me, in my eyes, and my number one. I think nothing Sacred Reich ever did, ever touched it, and so the American Way is not going to be my number one. Um,
Okay.
and number independent for me, I obviously like it way more than you guys. I mean, it's less thrashy, more groovy, but I don't know. I just love the songs. They really click with
Okay.
me. Like I love the songwriting. Like, to me, like I'd say 80 or 90% of the hooks stick with me. So like I can get a criticism on Independent and Ignorance that the albums are a bit one dimensional. Like there's not as much variety that you get on some of the other albums. But anyways, I like Independent from 1993. And then my number one album, which to me is a complete thrash masterpiece, Ignorance from
Mhm.
1987. I just, it's funny because very few bands would I pick the first album as
Mhm.
my favorite album. I tend to always prefer, like, I'll never pick Kill 'Em All as my
Mhm.
favorite metal. I always go with at least one or two more down the road where the songwriting and the musicianship matures. But this thing is just like a thrash masterpiece for me. And as I
Okay.
said, nothing even comes close in my eyes.
Okay.
The vicious riffs, they just leave their mark on every track. The drumming, the bass playing, Phil's obviously his most intensive vocal delivery, and in fairness, like the production's more raw. I mean that's a given, and the lyrical content is not quite as as mature as it would become. But to
Yeah.
me, just one of my all-time favorite albums. So,
Okay.
yeah, that's where I stand.
Cool.
Fair enough. That's fair.
And
Cool.
Blasphemy against Kill 'Em All. That's my favorite album of
Is
all
it?
time.
Like, it's funny, I go backwards, right? For me, it's And Justice first,
Yeah.
then it's Puppets 2, then it's Lightning 3, and then it's
Oh,
Killing All 4. But I know I'm the extreme minority here on this one.
Well, Justice, I think everyone, like I know Jason has a soft spot for
yeah.
Justice,
Yeah.
but I think it's just because when it came out, like it was so huge, and not only
Oh,
that, but it had the video one, and it was a big deal in that because remember they they were telling the press that they weren't interested in making any music videos, and then they do one, and then they pick Dalton Trumble's book, which is clever in my mind, and
yeah.
it was such a huge thing. I remember it was on TV. I remember like watching this thing on TV, like Metallica first video. It's like, so yeah, I can see where that band at that time holds a lot. Like a lot of us hold a candle to that. Like we just can't forget it.
Yeah. And it was funny because like I used to when the video for one came on,
Yeah.
I would eagerly tune in. And
Mhm.
you guys probably know this, but there were two versions, right?
Yep.
Yes.
It was the
The
shorter
radio.
version where they cut off the best part, right? All the
Yeah.
riffing and chaos of the end, right? I'd be sitting there like, come on, be the long version, be the long version. And then half the time I'd be, or more than half, I'd be disappointed. Uh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
uh,
For
Okay,
sure.
so to the tougher section. I'm
Oh.
thinking Sacred Reich songs. Now, I guess we could have been really harsh and said do a top 10, but we limited it to top five. So, Jim, how about you kick us off here?
Absolutely. So I have an honorable mention from Heel, and that's the song Low. I really like that song.
Which
It's
one,
got a
Jim? Sorry, which
total
one?
Pantera vibe. Sorry?
Oh, which song was that?
Low.
Oh, Low. Okay, okay, okay.
Yeah, I really like that song. I am a huge Pantera fan, so that was kind of definitely cool. But my number five is off of Awakening. It's Manifest Reality. Love that
Oh,
song.
that's a really good song.
My number four is off Awakening. And this is kind of goes against what I said because I didn't pick that as my number one. But, anyways, Divide and Conquer. Love that song as well. Again, this album, I really hope the new album is going to be like along this vein because it's just going to be awesome. Number three is from the EP, Surf Nicaragua, the song. I think that's a fun song and that's a cool song. It's got that kind of Jan and Dean Beach Boysy, they play on the
Yeah.
guitar and that. I think that's pretty neat. And I wish that would have been a full on album. I mean, it could have been 1988. They could have squeezed that in. Number two from Ignorance, wicked song, Death Squad. Love that song. And like Billy, you hit it on the head. I mean, that's a kick ass album, and it is a thrash album. I mean, it is awesome. And my first song comes off of The American Way, which would be Crimes Against Humanity. Love that song. Love that song.
No, that makes sense. Okay, yeah, it's funny. It never dawned on me. I mean, it makes perfect sense. We were doing top five songs, but I thought, hell, who am I kidding? My top five wouldn't have changed, but I never thought to think about Surf Nicaragua because that would have probably been up there in my list, but probably not cracked the top five. But
Oh,
uh, okay, so yeah, so on my side, I gotta be honest, I wish my list was a bit more diverse
Okay.
across the Sacred Reich albums, but the top five favorite songs, right? So I gotta be honest
Sure.
with myself. So here we go. Number five, Ignorance from Ignorance. Number four, Violent Solutions from Ignorance. And let me know if you're catching a theme here. Three, Victims of Demise off of Ignorance. Number
Mm-hmm.
two, Administrative Decisions.
Mm-hmm.
Once again, Ignorance and Death Squad. Uh, the
Death
absolute
Squad.
best opening track for any Sacred Reich album and one of the best
Yeah.
in thrash metal history, as far as I'm concerned. So, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
again, I just think those are five of the greatest metal songs. And, and if we did a top 10, I'll tell you two more off of Ignorance would have made the list, like no doubt. So yeah, like hopefully I'm not viewed as narrow-minded, but I'm just being honest.
Oh, that's
Uh,
fine. You like
Yes.
what you like.
yeah, exactly. Okay, cool. How about have you guys been able? I know Sacred Reich have been around for a long time, and they're a pretty good touring band. Have you guys had the chance to see them or catch them yet?
No.
Yeah,
No.
I saw them in 2019 when Awakening came out. They
Okay.
played Toronto. They played Toronto.
Yeah.
Was a good show. There was like I can't even remember who was on the bill, but there was several bands on the bill. But they were good. They had a short set, but I liked it. I thought Bill was great. I thought they were great live. You're right what you said earlier, Billy, that when they're live, the music is much faster.
Yeah.
Tend to they don't tend to like meander on some of the songs. They really just go for the throat, and I
Yeah.
think it makes sense, right? You're a thrash band, and you're trying to appeal to young kids to get into the mosh pit. But yeah, I thought it was a pretty good show overall.
Yeah. Yeah, no, yeah, they do a really good job. And Jim, the tracks from that you picked from Awakening, I think they played all of both of those live.
Nice.
Yeah, they did a good job on those. Yeah,
Great.
and like I'll just call out, it was funny the last time I saw Sacred Reich was in two was it two? No, Awakening. I would have saw them, but the last time I saw them with Jason was 2017, and I remember walking away thinking like Jason just wasn't into it at all. He was like, not paying attention. Like it looked like he was kind of just, there because he had to be. And then the contrast of seeing them on Awakening with Joey, it just like totally lit up the band.
Nice.
And I know Jason had been sick for a while, so he might have been sort of battling through that tour. And then, of course, they sort of separated their ways. But yeah, it was too bad.
Yeah.
Okay, so cool. So maybe to wrap up Sacred Reich, any
Whoa,
final?
whoa, 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 whoa.
Oh,
I didn't
Ken's
get
got to
my
give
list
his.
in. I didn't get my list in, dude.
oh, you didn't do
My
your
list.
list. Oh, geez, sorry. Okay.
No worries. No worries. No problem. All
I was
right.
so
So
I was so excited with my list, I forgot you, Ken.
yeah, no worries, dude. No problem. So number 5, I'm gonna put Independent, which I do actually like that song. It's got a nice I don't know, it's one of those songs that I do think about often, like it'll pop into my head. Number 4, I'm putting Violent Solutions. That's a pretty great thrash all the way through. Number 3, I'm putting State of Emergency, which is another song that I really, really dig. I love the lyrics of that song. Number 2, it's going to be Surf Nicaragua. And number 1, The American Way.
Nice.
That's my list.
All right, very cool. Okay, so to wrap up, I did get you right, Jim.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I know I got you. All right, cool. So before we sort of wrap up, any last comments you guys want to make on Sacred Reich?
No, it's a really good album. I think but as I said earlier, if someone new to me came up to me and said, what about Sacred Reich? I would point them. I actually would point them to this album. Not because Ignorance isn't good. Ignorance you're right, Billy. It's a great thrash album for its time when it came out. But if you want like really good songwriting and really good a good vibe for music, that's the album I would point people to hear right away. So I'm glad we decided to cover that this week because it's yeah, because a lot of those songs, like I could listen to this album, put it away, come back to it like a week later and still love it. It's one of those kind of albums where it sticks with me all the time. I even the songs in my head, I can hear it. I mean, even 31 Flavors, and I don't know, like it's one of those albums you just don't like, you just can't forget. So I would think that yeah, that would be what I think about Sacred Reich.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
How
And
about you,
I
Jim?
think I hope their new album, like they only had eight songs on, I think, Awakening. So
That's right.
I really want maybe a 10, maybe a couple of live ones on there, but really I want this to be so good for them because I think they're a massively underrated band. They fall in, like we were talking earlier, the second wave, maybe towards the end of the second wave, but I think they deserve, thrash metal, heavy metal right now, from what I can see, seems to be on the rise. I mean, look at the releases that are coming out. There's such, you had Judas Priest just a couple weeks ago, Bruce Dickinson, you've got Atrophy, you've got so many good albums coming out, and ones that you want to pick up, and Necrot's got an album coming out, and it's just so cool. It's a great time. I think there's definitely a resurgence. So, and I think they should be a big part of this. And I think an album, they've got the youth, they've brought in some of that youth. I think it can really, really do them some good. And I think I'm excited. I hope to God it's an ass kicking album.
Did they announce a release date at all? Like, is it for sure this year?
They
No.
haven't no release date, but they're working on one as far as I
Yeah.
know.
Okay. All right. That'll be cool. Yeah, no, yeah, I look forward to the new album. Was really happy to see the guys reunite back in 2017. So that was really cool. Like I think it does the band good to sort of not that we want members to be forced to leave or to pass away, obviously, but sometimes getting some young blood in an old thrash band or any old metal band, I think sort of does good. It lights a fire under the band. So I mean, who knows? We might get a real ripper of a next album. So let's see what happens there. And yeah, like definitely have a lot of respect for Phil. Like I don't know if you guys sort of followed along there, but his wife had like a really bad accident, and she was in a coma for a long time, and she had to go through extensive rehab, and he spent a lot of time at the hospital with her. And a part of me kind of wondered if we would see Sacred Reich continue, because this was a really long ordeal. But I mean, he hung in there, and luckily his wife got better, and I'm sure they're still working through that road right now. But yeah, I was happy to see just following along, and you kind of get vested in his story because he was sort of posting updates regularly. So yeah, really happy to see that end in a positive way.
The one thing
Right.
I would say about him too is that when he came back to perform, he ballooned, like he put on so much weight. I was like,
Oh yeah,
wow. Yeah, it was like he was really. I think he's lost a lot of that weight now, but
yeah,
when they started when the Reformation happened, it was like, wow, dude, you must have really been sitting around not doing a lot of music for quite a long time, because he ballooned up to this great. It was huge.
yeah,
It's just
no,
something I noticed. Not that I want to like point the guy's fault out, but it was just
yeah,
something
no.
that I noticed from the start. It's like, wow, holy. But I think he's looking a lot better nowadays, though.
Oh yeah, no, he's really slimmed down, right? I think
Yeah,
he's like
yeah,
a full-on vegetarian and
cool.
eating much healthier. Yeah, you really saw it, right? I think it was with Awakening, right? All the
Yeah,
promo material, he was like a totally different person.
yeah, he
He
was
looked
really
great,
hefty.
yeah.
Yeah, and so I'm happy that that he's got the band back together. They've actually created an album, put it out, and putting out another one. So it's all good. I think we all agree here that we're all looking forward to another album.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we need an Arizona or Phoenix tour
Yeah.
with
Oh,
them and Flotsam and Atrophy. That'd be one hell of a lineup.
Oh
well,
yeah.
Flotsam is still going strong too.
Yeah.
They're kick ass every album, and I think Eric AK just turned what 60 or something, or 61 or
Yeah.
62. Dude, that guy can still like his
Oh
vocals are
yeah.
still great. They're still great, and every album is still ripper. I love those guys.
I know the last few albums were fantastic, right? The last one with what was that? Was it a snake on the cover? Or, I
It
already
was
forgot.
like it was their demon creature that they had from the
Yeah.
first album.
Oh wait, oh yeah, 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 yeah.
It
Okay.
was coming out of the water,
Yeah, 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 yeah,
I think,
yeah.
or something like that.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah, okay. Yeah, no, I think they do a great job. I know they've had a bit more trouble touring though. Like they
Yeah,
actually just canceled like a complete tour. I think they had issues with getting equipment, and like with everybody touring now, it's a fight to get like buses
yeah,
and trucks. But I think I've seen them quite a few times recently.
yep.
Unfortunately, the last time I saw them was in Philadelphia. Now, mind
Mhm.
you, it was probably a Monday or Tuesday night. No joke, only about 20 people showed up.
Wow.
Really?
I just
Whoa.
I felt so bad for the band, right? They were it was like it was kind of my own personal show.
Okay.
But I think they kind of knew it because they were playing a venue that probably only held about 200 people.
Oh
Uh,
wow.
so they weren't expecting a big crowd at all. But then I see them in Germany at Wacken, and they're playing to like 80,000 people. So that's
Oh
the
cool.
whole Europe versus North America, I guess.
I saw them with Testament, I think it was 2017. It was a really good show. It was again not a it was at the Phoenix. It wasn't a large crowd, but I had a really good time. I really enjoyed myself seeing them live. So yeah, they're a great live band.
Yeah. Were you, Ken? I know you're located in Toronto. Did you see that show at the Phoenix where they were opening for Overkill, but Bobby was so sick he just couldn't go on
Yeah.
stage.
Yep.
So
Yep.
they did like a double set. Like I was so
Yep.
happy. I mean, I
Yep.
love
Yep.
Overkill, but
Yeah, I love Overkill too.
yeah,
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 yeah, I remember that. Those guys are troopers. Those
yeah,
guys
yeah,
are
yeah,
they're troopers.
yeah,
They're a great
yeah.
band.
All right, cool. Anything else? Anyone else? Anyone wants to raise before we wrap up?
All
Um,
good.
we're all good. We should also just mention next our next
Yep.
episode and our band. So we are going to cover Destruction's Cracked Brain. It's an album that I really, really love. I've always been a huge fan of it. That album cover, it just blows me away every time I look at that cover. So, yep. So we're gonna do Destruction next.
Yep. Yeah, that should be an interesting discussion. Yeah, and I think it's sort of a divisive album because you don't have Schmear on vocals, right? So
Yeah.
That's right.
he's just all the legendary albums, right? This is a departure from that, but so yeah,
Andre Greeder's really good. He's a good
I like him.
vocalist. He's
He's
in
from Poltergeist.
right. I was just
Yeah.
gonna say and Poltergeist Reformed because they've had a bunch of albums out the last few years.
Yeah, and they're great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
of course. Yeah, I would agree. They're fantastic. He's a great vocalist. I had no problem when he took over when he came over to be the new vocalist at that time. But we'll
Yeah,
talk about it. We'll be
yeah.
talking about it.
No shortage of stuff to
No.
talk about. Okay, so cool. So just want to thank everyone again for tuning in, and we'll see you next week. Thanks.
Yep. Thanks a lot, guys.
Yeah.